LeBron James with no regard for human life.
70 points for Devin Booker.
Trae Young, ice cold, delivers a three. Oh, what a shot from Curry.
Down to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the All NBA podcast. Today we are with our third team. So say what's up to the All NBA audience. Our first guard, Brady.
Oh, what's up?
Filling in for our second guard, Bryson, we have Clutch.
What's going on, everybody?
Filling in for our first forward, Cody, we have me, Angelina. For our second forward, we have Jew.
What's up, everybody?
And last but definitely not least, we have our center, Leb. Say what's up.
Yo, what's good?
All right, now that I've introduced all of you guys, in this episode, we are going to be talking about a variety of different topics. But for this one, we mainly wanted it to be NBA Finals themed. So, Brady, take it away.
I guess the first thing we should probably talk about is Giannis and his injury. And I mean, there's been like a little bit of I don't know if it's like so much of an update. It's more of like just kind of stuff going on around Phoenix. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add. It's just more uncertainty, I guess, with just more news around the uncertainty. But I'm just kind of wondering what you guys think about that.
Right, so I think Giannis has a chance maybe to start the series. I think it'd be incredibly unprofessional for a coaching staff to put him out there game one. I wouldn't do that, but I think they might, just because of the importance of being in the finals and Giannis maybe trying to downplay the injury so he can play. So I could see him definitely playing game one. I don't think he should. I think it will affect the team long term if he does start the series in game one.
Honestly, about the whole Giannis injury situation, the most I've heard personally about his injury was that there's no structural damage to his knee. So we know there's no sort of torn ACL, that his knee is going to heal faster than we all anticipated. And I'm sure we can all agree that the injury scared all of us because, you know, of course it's Giannis, and going into the finals, for them to start Giannis in the finals, I can see them doing it because, again, like Clutch said, the importance of being in the NBA finals versus a very stacked Phoenix Suns team and a very trophy-hungry Phoenix Suns team. So to me, personally, I feel like they should wait it out just one game, see how it goes without him there. And if they realize that Giannis needs to be put back in the starting lineup, then I'm sure they're going to do it. But ultimately, I feel like it's up to the coaching staff and Giannis, because if Giannis isn't comfortable going back in, they're not going to put him in. But if he feels good to go, then they're going to put him back in. But yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't start him first game, just see how it goes without him. And then from there on, just work his way back into the lineup.
Yeah, for me, I kind of think it just depends on how game one goes also. But it's more so game one's going to be a fill-out game. So the Suns are probably going to go with a different look so they can see what works against Judge Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton without Giannis. Honestly, the game 2 and 3, if Giannis does play, he's probably going to be on a minutes restriction or like not playing heavily like he usually does. So I think you're going to see more of Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday taking more shots like they did in the game 6 and game 7 against the Hawks. So it just depends on that and how game one goes, and see, and like if they're having to rush to get him back and see if he's healthy enough to actually play.
As a Nets fan, this really makes me worrisome because I just think instantly about KD when he got rushed back into the finals and he wanted to help his team out and he obviously wasn't ready to help him out. I feel like he should come back, but he needs to be, I mean, none of us are Giannis. So my main point here is that I don't want to be the one to speak and say, I know when he should be able to play. We aren't in his body. We don't know how his knee's feeling. The same way with all athletes, in my opinion. But Giannis also relies heavily on his athleticism for his style of play. And that could end up being a huge issue when he comes back. And it could definitely hinder him. Like we saw with like James Harden in the Net series when he came back and was playing on a hurt hamstring. And he just obviously wasn't able to get anything done, lacking that athleticism.
I just wanted to add one quick thing to the end of that, just because I've been around. I've been living in the Milwaukee area since I was a kid. So I've been like following the Bucks like my entire life. And the one thing that I kind of want to add just about Giannis and this Buck staff in general is that they're really conservative about like how they play guys in general, especially like the past years, like not just like going on about like just days where they have like rest in general, but the way they deploy, especially their starting five the last few years, they've played them lower amounts of minutes. They've definitely gone deeper into their bench in the past than they have now. Giannis is the kind of guy where they're kind of having to lock him out of the gym every now and again. There was a lot of people talking that he really wanted to play games 5 and 6 and that he felt good, but they kept him off court before game 5 and he only started to do on court work again before game 6. There's like a belief amongst people in the know that if there would have been a game 7 that he would have played. So I wouldn't be surprised if he played game 1 just because he's just built like that. I mean, he's kind of wired just to, if he wants to do something, he's going to go after it. But if they hold him out, it's because they want to give him a little bit of extra rest before the 2-game breathers between games 2, 3, and 4, instead of having just the 1-day rest between 1 and 2. That'd be the only reason I see him not playing.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about Giannis, and I kind of want to move on to the next team, to the other team in the NBA Finals, a player from their team, the Phoenix Suns. I wanted to talk about CP3. We know his future in this league is uncertain because some people said he would take the player option, he would not take the player option. So we don't know what's going to happen there. Obviously, we all know this finals is huge for him and his legacy. So in a hypothetical world where Milwaukee wins the finals and Chris Paul cannot get it done, the question really is, what do you think that Chris Paul does? Does he go to another team to get a better crack at the finals again? Does he stay? Does he think this team can come back to the finals? Personally here, I think Chris Paul is going to accept his player option. I don't think as much as he said he would like a long-term deal, I don't think anybody would give him one yet, even how good he's played, but age is still a big concern in the NBA. So I don't think he would turn that money down. I think he plays out his next year, tries to run it back if he loses. And then if that doesn't work, then maybe hop on to a contender after that in the postseason for later on. What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't really see James Jones letting that situation kind of play out. I think there's a good chance that James Jones will sign him to a longer term extension after the year's over. Obviously, Chris Paul can play just about anywhere. He's still that good. I mean, he's as smart as they come. He understands how to win. He's been in winning situations all around the league now. And winning just seems to follow him. And I don't see any reason to break that up in year 2 or 3. And I just see them even giving that any kind of a thought is an issue. And it kind of goes against what they want to do when they traded for him in the first place. Because you don't trade for Chris Paul just for like a 2-year spin if you're Phoenix after you haven't made the postseason since 2010, I think. I just don't understand why they would go on with uncertainty around Chris Paul when they could just lock him up if they really want to keep him.
Personally, about the whole Chris Paul situation and what's his next move if they don't win, to be honest, I'm going to be straightforward. He's been in the league longer than I've been alive. So for him to be in the league for as long as he has and just to not win a chip, you'd think that he'd get sort of tired. But no, Chris Paul is just trophy hungry. He does not stop until he gets what he wants. And so I can see the Suns, like Brady said, sending him to a long-term deal because, to be honest, I feel like the whole chemistry with him and Devin Booker and just the whole Phoenix Suns team, they get along very well and their chemistry fits amazing. And the whole team gets along amazingly. And now look at their hard work and their teamwork has led them. And I feel like Monty Williams and Chris Paul's relationship also has something to do with the way he's played, because obviously the coaching staff and the way the coach works the team has a big impact on how the player plays. And so, yeah, I feel like Chris Paul, I know he's not a quitter, so I can't really see him like retiring, but he is getting up there in age. So it's just a matter of how they're going to get it done and if they get it done and just what's his next move, depending how trophy hungry he really is. But from what it looks like, it seems like he's very trophy hungry.
Yeah, for me, I think it's like they were saying, like Clutch was saying, everybody was saying, I think James Jones just doesn't risk it. I think he signs him for like at least until like maybe he wants to retire somewhere specifically for like the last year, like some certain players do. But I think he's finishes most of his career out with the Suns. They have a young team. it just seems like they seem to thrive better with Chris Paul, and Chris Paul seems to motivate them a lot. They can develop under him really well, like Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, even Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder was good in the Heat, but he's playing immaculate on the Suns. So I just think the chemistry there is just amazing. I think they don't need to break that up, especially if they lose after not making the playoffs for almost a whole decade. Just going to the playoffs and then going to the finals impresses in itself, even if you lose.
Yeah, you definitely have to do everything you can to keep Chris Paul around. I mean, if Chris Paul, I definitely can't see him wanting to leave after the 2 years, especially after this year. He's just had an incredible year, and everything just seems like he wants to be in Phoenix. And honestly, they went from not even making the playoffs last year to being in the NBA Finals this year. That's absolutely incredible. Even if you don't win the finals, even if you get swept, really doesn't matter. You give him the max, it really doesn't matter whatsoever. That shouldn't be in question at all.
Yeah, I actually agree with every single one of you that said from a Suns perspective, of course you keep him. Like, you traded for him. Yeah, of course you want him long term, especially with the success you had this season. But I think it's up to Chris Paul, because it's a player option. Does he want to stay, or does he feel he has a better opportunity elsewhere? It's really up to him. I do think he's going to stay because this is the farthest he's ever gone with any team in his career. So I do think eventually him and Phoenix are going to come to some sort of agreement.
All right, so we all know the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be going at it in the NBA Finals. But I just had to ask you guys, what do you guys think this finals matchup is going to be? Just who do you guys think the finals matchup is going to be, and who's the winner of that finals matchup?
Are you talking more positional or just like series and like as a whole?
Like players on players, like forward on forward, guard on guard, etc.
All right. I mean, they played only twice in the regular season, obviously Eastern-Western matchup. Both of them like only finished with a 1 point difference where, I mean, either team obviously could have won, and both of them were ridiculous games. And game one, I mean, the Bucks guards kind of carried him even without Drew Holiday. They had one of the Bryn Forbes games where he just knocks down a ton of threes and he just kind of picks up a lot of the slack. But overall, I think the matchup in the backcourt is going to have to be won either by the defense of Chris and Drew or the offense of Chris Paul and Devin Booker, just because the way that the Bucks match up defensively against teams is they can really make everything kind of a rock fight. The way they can switch 1 to 4 fairly easily, and Brooks he's more mobile than people give him credit for. And if the Bucks can kind of keep Chris Paul out of his own rhythm and get into that mid-range area, and if they can get him into a little deeper into the paint, I think it's probably going to bode well for the Bucks. And just keeping Devin Booker as down as you can possibly keep someone like Devin Booker is basically going to be the key for the Bucks to win. Even if they don't have Giannis in game one, I think they show that they can defend even without him. But yeah, I see basically the backcourt on Phoenix's offensive side and the Bucks defensive side being what's going to decide, at least early on in this, is going to decide the winners, at least early on in the series.
Yeah, I think the matchups are pretty interesting. You got Chris Paul and Drew Holiday. You got Devin Booker and Chris Middleton. And I think really somebody like DeAndre Ayton is going to finally maybe help neutralize Brook Lopez, who has been a factor in other series this year. I think that's big. I also think the Suns and Monty Williams, who is a very good coach, should take a look at the Miami Heat's playbook from the second round last year on how they played Giannis. And just happens to be that they have Jay Crowder on their team, who was the main defender on Giannis most of the time in that series from last year. So I think you have to throw multiple bodies at Giannis, like the Heat did last year, and they were very successful at it. You put Jay Crowder as the primary defender, and you throw Mikal Bridges, keep switching, and just make him uncomfortable. I think that's the key to the key for the Suns to win. The key for the Bucks to win has to be just imposing their force. They're a very big team. I really think it's a very evenly matched series, although I would give the bench to the Suns and the coaching matchup, obviously, because I'm personally not a big fan of Budenholzer. So I think Monty Williams is very good there. I really do think that the Suns hold the winning matchup there.
Yeah, matchup wise, I just feel like with having Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson all able to throw bodies at Giannis, and also when he goes baseline and try to trap it, make him make the right pass, right decision, especially since Dante DiVincenzo has been down. They've been playing Pat Connaughton a good bit. I just feel like, especially when he's in the game and Giannis in the game too, at the same time, forcing the ball to Giannis's hand and making Pat Connaughton hit shots is going to be a very big key for both teams if he's making or missing. But it's also going to depend on what Giannis you're getting for after injury. We don't know if he's going to be as explosive or if he's still going to be the same Giannis. But I just think that's going to be the key thing, just throwing bodies at Giannis, switching off screens, helping. Good rotations on the Sun side, and the Bucks side of everything is just going to be not letting them get hot from three, because once Devin Booker, you have to make Devin Booker uncomfortable coming off those pick and rolls with DeAndre Ayton, and just try not to leave Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder open, because they're going to hit. So it's just going to be a matter of pick and choosing of who you want to score and who you want to just kill you over the few games, honestly.
Yeah, so I think when you're looking at who the matchup winners are, you definitely have to go with the Suns in this. I think that even with Giannis, if he's 100% in the finals, they're the by far winners in this. I think Devin Booker and Chris Paul in the backcourt is just way too much to handle for Milwaukee. And in the playoffs, I still, even though Giannis has made this run to the finals, I don't feel like he's that much of as big of a factor as people make it out to be from time to time in the playoffs. Because when you're in the playoffs, you really, like, the opposing team's just trying to give up mid-ranges to you. And that's how you're going to find your open shots. And you're forced to take mid-range shots in the postseason. I don't see where the Bucks are going to get that from. I mean, you have Drew and Middleton. I mean, other than that, PJ Tucker's can't even hit corner threes anymore. I just don't see how they can possibly take down the Suns. That DeAndre Ayton pick and roll with either Booker or Chris Paul, it's just not stoppable for the Bucks, in my opinion.
I just kind of want to touch on like the Giannis thing quick, because I mean, before he got hurt, he was having one of the most ridiculous playoff runs that at least recent history. And the thing that the Suns have had problems with is they're looking to, at least in game one when they played the Bucks, is they did a lot of stuff with DeAndre Ayton on him, and he's a little too handsy with Giannis to probably stick with him all game long. Because in the third quarter, I believe the one thing that DeAndre Ayton just didn't have was like the wherewithal to make sure he had like his hands off and was just more vertical than he was like just trying to be hands-on with them. And the problem if DeAndre Ayton gets with your small ball unit, and in the Miami series, especially with the Bucks, is they really did a lot of damage with Brook Lopez when they were trying to just stick Bam on Giannis and just had Trevor Ariza on Brook Lopez, and that caused a lot of problems for them. And I didn't really like that they went away from that in the Nets series, but I mean, the resurgence of that after Giannis got hurt, I think, is really telling. And you can like not like Bud as much as you want. I completely understand like the hate towards Bud. But the one thing he has done this year has been a lot more flexible with how he's played defensively, whether that be higher lines of engagement on screens, so that just be switching flat out 1 to 5, or just being more trusting in his guys to be able to get over screens, like with PJ Tucker or Dante when he was healthy. I don't know exactly what the cursory kind of thing is with Bud. I don't know like what everyone else thinks about Bud, and I understand the Bud hate. I do. I just think it's a little bit overblown, especially in this playoff run, because he's been better than most people probably give him credit for. I mean, the only thing that really hasn't clicked with the Bucks is their shooting from the regular season, and if they hit an average amount of threes, they're going to be really tough to beat. But with the Suns, I mean, they did pick him apart in the pick and roll, but they've also played a lot of different coverages against Chris Paul, and without Dante DiVincenzo, that's going to be really hard for them to contain. And I have a lot more to say, but I don't want to go on for like a whole like a whole spiel. But that's just kind of like the couple things I wanted to add there.
Who do y'all think is going to win the finals and finals MVP? For me, I have the Suns winning it, with the MVP either going to Devin Booker, or surprisingly, I feel like it's going to be one of those dark like X Factor players, like maybe Mikal Bridges or Jay Crowder has like an amazing game. But I honestly do think it will probably be Devin Booker if the Suns win. What about y'all?
I mean, I don't see any way the series doesn't go 6 or 7 the way like the regular season matchups have played out so far, considering that, I mean, they're basically coin flips. I honestly think if this doesn't, like, I really hope this goes 7, because I really want to have fun with this. I think there's a whole lot of just fun stuff that could just happen, like just these real tiny parts of games where Pat Connaughton will go flying around on the court for no apparent reason, or a campaign will just have 5 minutes where he just puts up 5 different threes from different angles. That doesn't seem possible, just because why not? But I don't know, like, it's really hard, because it's like predicting for the series is kind of who's going to win like 4 separate possessions that could win a game. I want to say the Bucks, just because it's like I've been along for this ride, and it's been one hell of a ride for the last 3 years with Bud at the helm. And I think I'm just going to do that just because like I'm just going to have blind faith, because I haven't had blind faith ever in this team from the day I was born. So I'll change it up now just so they can go ahead and disappoint me again. But I'll say Bucks in 7 because they finished every other series out on the road that they've played so far. So hopefully that trend continues. And I guess I'll give Chris Middleton Finals MVP if the Bucks end up winning it.
So I personally think I give it 6-7 games like you said, but I'll give it to the Suns. I think this really is going to be Devin Booker's breakout party. Like you saw everything he's done during this entire playoffs, and he's been amazing. But I think this is going to be his breakout party that's going to cement him as a superstar in this league. I think he's going to win the Finals MVP. I think some people out there say it could be Chris Paul because just as a story, his first leading his team and getting the first championship finally. But no, I think this is going to be Devin Booker's breakout party. I think he's going to be the Finals MVP.
Right. So personally, from what I've seen, like everyone has the Suns winning. And me personally, I have the Suns winning too, because I feel like they were really a dark horse coming into this postseason. And I feel like after they eliminated the Lakers in the first round and then swept Denver, I really feel like that was everyone's moment. Like, okay, the Suns are a really, really good team, and their matchup is also really, really good. So for me, I have the Suns winning, and like everyone said so far, either 6 or 7 games, just to keep it close, keep it a good series. And as for Finals MVP, like Clutch said, there's been a couple people saying they'd like Chris Paul to win for the story and all that. And for me, I feel like that'd be cool just as a story, but realistically, I don't know. It really just depends which player performs and shows out the most opposed to the other ones. So from what Devin Booker's had this postseason, from him dropping a 40-point triple-double in his first game of the Western Conference Finals versus the Clippers, I really think that just showed everybody what he's really capable of and just what he's really made of. For him to show everyone like, hey, I'm not a player to be played with, like mess around with or whatever. But I really feel it could either be Devin Booker or, like Brady said, a dark horse player like DeAndre Ayton, Jay Crowder, Cameron Payne, players like that, Mikal Bridges. But if I had to choose one out of those players, I would go with Devin Booker.
So it might just be the little upset Nets fan inside of me that's just hating to see the Bucks here. But I'm gonna go with the Suns in 5, honestly. And I think that the Suns, I think they earned this championship. I think they've been great all year long. I had them going to the finals, like coming into the playoffs. I had them losing in it, but now that my Nets are out, I think they're going to win it all, honestly. I think that DeAndre Ayton is going to win the Finals MVP in this series because I think Devin Booker is just going to light it up for Devin Booker, and Chris Paul will probably light it up for the first game or two. And I see Budenholzer making an adjustment and having Brook Lopez start committing to try to guard Devin Booker and Chris Paul in that mid-range. And it's just going to leave wide open lobs for DeAndre Ayton all series. And I could definitely see a series where DeAndre Ayton's averaging 25 and 15 for the Suns in the finals.
Yeah, I want to add a little food for thought on the Finals MVP for the Suns. I really do think it's, like I said, it was going to be Devin Booker, but I think Jay Crowder has a legit chance at the Finals MVP if he can play defense on Giannis like he did last year. I really think he has a legitimate chance to get it. But he obviously has to do that again, which is no easy task. I'm still going with Devin Booker, though.
I was also wondering, which player do you guys think has the most to gain from this finals?
I mean, me personally, I think that there's a couple guys on each of the rosters that, I mean, people kind of don't know a lot about, and I think they're both guards, I think, and one of them is Cam Payne. I love the Cam Payne story. I can't get enough of Cam Payne. And he's only gotten better with Chris Paul being there as well. And I think just everything that Cam Payne's been able to do since he's got to Phoenix is absolutely amazing, and I'm really happy for him. And then the other guy on the other side would be Jrue Holiday, just because I think a lot of people don't realize how dominant he is on both sides of the ball. When he got really aggressive in Game 6, I mean, his performance in Game 6 against the Hawks was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. I believe it was 27, 9, 9, 4 steals and 2 blocks. I mean, he was just everywhere, and it was ridiculous. And I mean, I think people, now that he's on like the stage of stages in basketball, I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be coming around and realizing how good that Jrue Holiday actually is. And I'll be perfectly honest, before we traded for him in years, like 2 years ago, I believe, I wasn't as big of a Drew Holiday guy as I am now because I wasn't able to watch him night in, night out. But he's been absolutely amazing. And if he performed on the biggest of stages, I think he's going to have a lot to gain just by people realizing how good of a player he is. And he's going to take himself from that, borderline all-star to someone who people realize, hey, like he probably should have been an all-star this year. I mean, according to advanced stats and everything. But I mean, I think that those two specifically have a lot to gain just by playing well.
Right. So I think the most to gain, I'll go one from each side. I really think like I've said during the discussion about the finals MVP is, I think the most to gain is Devin Booker. He has a real chance to cement his legacy here as a superstar in this league. It's really big for him there. On the other side, I think it's obvious. I was going to say Giannis, but actually I think it's Chris Middleton. He has a lot to gain from being one of the best players in this series. If he can do that and be one of the best players in the series, he could really step it up another level in being recognized among the league as not just Giannis' sidekick.
Right. And for me personally, if I were to pick one out of the two teams, I would have to say Devin Booker, just overall, because to be a young superstar and to do all the things he's done for the Phoenix Suns at such a young age, to drop a 40-point triple-double in your first Western Conference game against a very stacked Los Angeles Clippers team, and to just make it this far and to just prove yourself to everybody and just know that I am who I am and I've done what I've done. And so just basically just for him to prove a point. But if I were to say someone from the Bucks, I would have to agree with Clutch and say Chris Middleton. He's just been a breakout player for them, and he's really coming clutch in these games where they've needed an extra three. And you can see from Miami, they were tied in overtime, and he just drains a mid-range jump shot and wins the game for Milwaukee. And then in just clutch moments versus Atlanta and also versus Brooklyn, where he just made those clutch threes, just clutch shots in general to help bring the Bucks up by 2 or 3 and to just seal the game for them. And I feel like some people just really don't give him enough credit for that. And I really feel that just Chris Middleton does a lot more for Milwaukee than some people might think. And so just I give him his roses for that. But if I were to just say overall, I would say Devin Booker.
For me, I think for the Suns, it's kind of is Chris Paul because he's getting older. He doesn't want to be one of those players to be a great without a ring. I know like people hate that, and like people nowadays looking back on like players like John Stockton, Karl Malone, they don't give them as much credit as I guess they could have. More reasons other than others, but the main one being is that they just don't have a ring. And so I don't think Chris Paul wants to be that type of player. I think he's a great point guard. I just think from an aspect of who is going to benefit the most from it or who needs it the most, I would say Chris Paul. And on the Bucks side of it, I'm not even going to go with a player. I'm going to go with Bud because essentially he's always been known as a coach to not get over that hump. And I think he wants to, because if Giannis and Chris Middleton, them don't win it, they're young, well, not young, but they're up and coming kind of, but they have a long way to go. So it's more so they can still win without Bud. I think Bud just has that reputation of not being able to get over the hump, especially at that Hawks team. I just think now he just needs to show that he can make adjustments when it's right to do so and get over the hump and win a championship.
Yeah, I would definitely say Chris Paul has the most to gain from this. If he wins this finals, this could very well easily be his last chance to win the finals. I do want to shout out Brady for saying that campaign earlier. I wouldn't have really thought about him as a player with a lot to gain from this finals, but he's entering, like, this is the last year of his contract, and he could get a huge bag this summer if he balls out in the finals and is a major contributor to a Suns finals win. As far as who my biggest is, I would definitely say Chris Paul. He's getting up there in age, and he's got to get a ring. If you want to look at his legacy after his career is over, you're definitely just going to look back at this finals. This is going to be the biggest thing out of everything that he's done throughout his career. That's my biggest guy. But if I had to pick one from the Bucks, I would say it's definitely Giannis. And I would also say that Chris Paul on the Suns and Giannis on the Bucks both have the most to lose as well as they have the most to gain. Because if Giannis doesn't win this finals, he is just going to get absolutely crucified by every single NBA fan out there. I mean, it's just been year after year after year with all these high expectations about Giannis. And there's just this year he had an easier path to making it there than he has in other years, and he's finally there. And if he doesn't convert this year, he's just gonna get ripped into shreds by everybody. I know that there's some Heat fans in here that will rip him into shreds. I know I'll rip him into shreds. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, you best believe I'm coming. So, anyways, I actually wanted to add to the most to lose because I really had an interesting thought here. The most to lose for the Suns, I think, is Chris Paul, because there's a big difference between a Hall of Fame point guard who has a ring and Hall of Fame point guard who doesn't have a ring. And I think this is probably his last shot at it, if we're being honest. Maybe they can make a run again, but I don't think so. But the most to lose for the Milwaukee Bucks, this might like surprise some of y'all, might not. I think the most to lose is Mike Budenholzer. Because if he loses, that could literally mean him losing his job. And I think that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the Bucks, personally, I don't think that after especially winning in Atlanta, I don't think that they're gonna look to move on from him anytime soon, as much as I may still dislike that, because they do a lot of things that are kind of questionable sometimes, and I don't quite understand why they do what they do sometimes, especially offensively, more so than defensively lately. I mean, Chris Paul probably has the most to lose because you never really know. I mean, anything can happen in the postseason. And I mean, obviously, like you've seen Chris Paul be on the unfortunate end of some injuries himself, especially in 2018. But I mean, that's literally the definition of being a hamstring away from probably winning a championship with Houston. And with that, it kind of gives there's a whole different world if Chris Paul and James Harden win that championship in Houston. I mean, he's probably has the most to lose just based on like the uncertainty of postseason play every year. And with the Bucks, I think for them, making it this far with a lot of these guys, I mean, everybody's their first finals as a player. And with them, I mean, they've seen Giannis go down with a rolled ankle last year when he was maybe figuring something out in the Miami series, but in the end, it probably wasn't going to matter too much anyway because they were already 3-0 down. So, I mean, with them, I mean, you've seen them come up short the last few years, and there's just, with them, it's going to be hard, especially with Brooklyn getting healthy again. If they can figure out how to stay healthy for an entire year, it's going to be tough for the Bucks, obviously. For both these teams, like uncertainty kind of looms in the future, so they got to take advantage of what they have now.
For me personally, on the Suns, who I think has the most to lose, I really feel like it's Chris Paul. Because like I said earlier, he's been in the league longer than I've been alive. So this is most likely his last shot at a championship unless he's that desperate to win one and he'll stick in the league for another 3 years, which I find doubtful, but hey, anything's possible. And as for the Bucks, I think the most to lose would be Giannis. Like Leb said, all the Heat fans and all the Brooklyn fans are just gonna come at his throat. I will be in on that, just bashing Giannis because he's stayed faithful to Milwaukee for so long, and to just go out this way, making his first finals appearance, it's just, I feel like, but I can agree with Clutch when he says Mike Budenholzer also has a lot to lose from this, because being that if he doesn't win this, he could ultimately potentially lose his job unless Milwaukee feels the need that, like, hey, you brought us to the finals for the first time in almost 50 years. Let's sign you a little bit longer, whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. It can really go both ways for Milwaukee, but I feel Chris Paul has the most to lose from this finals matchup if they somehow don't win.
I feel like with the way everything's going, it's going to be one of those things about Giannis. If he doesn't win, it's just going to hurt. I think he wants to win the most. I think he has the most to gain from it. It just depends on how everything turns out and how everything flips. It's just going to be how the ball rolls. It could be depending on 1 or 2 shots per game, because like they were saying earlier, every game's been close. It's just going to depend on who makes the right shot at the right time, who gets on the right streak, and who wins, honestly. But I think for sure Giannis probably going to be the one that wants the most to gain.
All right, so I feel like we've touched on everything we've needed to touch on so far. So I think I'm just going to close out this pod. But just to close out, I just got the recent news that Giannis is in fact doubtful for Game 1 versus the Phoenix Suns. So do with that as you will. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the All NBA podcast. If you got this far, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode.